I never imagined that spilling coffee on a stranger's $3,000 suit would change my life forever. But when that stranger turned out to be one of the world's most powerful billionaires, neither of us knew our chance meeting would heal wounds so deep they had defined us both. Growing up in South Atlanta, I was taught two things: work twice as hard and never expect anything to come easy. My mother, a high school English teacher with dreams bigger than her paycheck, made sure I understood the world wasn't designed for black girls like me to succeed without a fight. But fight I did. Through college scholarships, long nights studying, and 6 years of climbing the corporate ladder at a marketing firm where I was often the only black woman in the room. By 32, I had carved out a respectable life, my own condo, a director title, and enough savings to occasionally splurge on things that made me happy. Dating was casual, nothing serious. My career took priority, and I'd grown comfortable with my independence, maybe too comfortable. That Tuesday morning was like any other. I rushed into my favorite coffee shop downtown, already 15 minutes behind schedule for a client presentation. My mind was racing through slide decks and talking points when I turned too quickly, my full cup of dark roast colliding with what I would later learn was a $3,000 custom-tailored suit. Time seemed to freeze as the coffee spread across the pristine fabric, creating a map of my carelessness. I looked up, mortified, to find myself staring into the most intense eyes I'd ever seen. Not angry, surprisingly, but curious. Those eyes belonged to Elijah Thompson, though in that moment he was just a stranger whose day I had ruined. I had no idea he owned half the buildings in our skyline, or that Forbes had recently featured him on their cover. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, grabbing napkins frantically. "Please, let me pay for dry cleaning." He watched me dab at his jacket with a look I couldn't quite read. When he finally spoke, his voice carried none of the entitlement I expected. "Only if you'll tell me your name first," he said, taking the napkins from my trembling hands. I remember thinking how odd it was, this tall, imposing man with a ruined suit, worth more than my monthly rent, smiling at me like I'd done him a favor. I gave him my name, thinking it would be the end of our interaction. Neither of us could have possibly known that this awkward collision would be the beginning of something that would challenge everything we thought we understood about love, privilege, and finding someone who sees you, truly sees you, beyond the labels the world has given you. Stay with me as I take you through a journey that proves love doesn't see wealth, status, or color. It sees the soul beneath it all. Because sometimes the most beautiful connections happen when we least expect them, with people we never imagined would change our lives forever. That coffee-stained encounter should have ended with apologies and awkward goodbyes. Instead, Elijah insisted on buying me another coffee. "You seem like you were having a rough morning before ruining my suit," he said with a disarming smile. "Let me at least make sure you're properly caffeinated for whatever comes next." His warmth caught me off guard. This wasn't how powerful men typically behaved in my experience. As we waited for my replacement drink, I noticed people watching us, their expressions a mix of curiosity and judgment. A tall white man in expensive clothes, standing unusually close to a black woman like me. I could almost hear their assumptions forming. I felt myself shrinking under their gaze, wondering if he noticed it too. But Elijah seemed completely unbothered, asking about my presentation with genuine interest. We talked for barely 10 minutes, but something shifted in that brief exchange. There was an ease between us that defied explanation, like finding a familiar rhythm in unfamiliar territory. When he asked for my business card, I assumed it was politeness. 3 days later, his call surprised me. "I'd like to apologize properly for taking up your time," he said. "Would you consider dinner this weekend?" My instinct was to decline. Men like him didn't date women like me without agenda, but something in his voice made me curious enough to say yes. That first dinner revealed the vast differences in our worlds. His casual references to private jets and vacation homes in 3 countries contrasted sharply with my carefully budgeted life. Yet beneath the trappings of wealth, I glimpsed moments of genuine loneliness when he spoke about growing up with everything except emotional connection. "Everyone wants something from me," he admitted quietly. "It's refreshing to meet someone who only wanted napkins." I left that night convinced we'd never speak again. Our lives operated in completely different orbits. I was wrong. The text he sent simply read, "I've never met anyone who challenges my perspective like you do. When can I see you again?" The first time Elijah invited me to a charity gala, I spent 3 weeks' worth of grocery money on a dress that still looked modest compared to what the other women wore. Walking into that ballroom on his arm felt like stepping onto a different planet, one where everyone spoke a language of wealth I had never learned. The women assessed me with quick glances that caught everything from my department store shoes to my drugstore makeup. The men were polite but dismissive, their eyes sliding past me to find Elijah as if I were merely his temporary curiosity. "They're wondering what you want from me," Elijah whispered as we moved through the crowd. I felt a flash of anger rise in my chest. "Maybe they should be wondering what you want from me," I replied. He laughed then, a genuine sound that turned heads. "That's exactly why you're here," he said. Meeting his friends was one thing, but his family was another battlefield entirely. His mother's practiced smile never reached her eyes as she asked about my humble beginnings. His sister interrogated me about my career, as if searching for proof I was climbing some invisible social ladder. Only his father surprised me, pulling me aside to say, "He smiles differently with you. I haven't seen that in years." At home, my friends weren't much more supportive. "Girl, he's just experimenting," my best friend warned. "Men like that don't marry women like us." Her words stung because they echoed my own midnight doubts. When I was alone, I questioned everything. Our laughter over inside jokes, the way he listened intently when I spoke about my dreams, how he'd begun asking my opinion on business decisions. Was this all temporary? Was I fooling myself? Then came the night Elijah showed up at my door, soaking wet from the rain, looking utterly defeated after losing a major deal. "Everywhere else I go, I have to be strong," he confessed. "With you, I can just be human." That vulnerability cracked something open between us, something real that no designer label or bank account could replicate. The day our relationship went public wasn't planned. A photographer caught us holding hands outside a small jazz club, my choice for date night. By morning, Elijah's face was splashed across business blogs with headlines like "Billionaire Bachelor Finally Caught." With me cropped partially out of frame, referred to only as his mystery companion. By afternoon, someone had discovered my name, and my social media accounts exploded with messages ranging from curious to cruel. "This will pass," Elijah assured me, but I wasn't prepared for how vicious people could be. Complete strangers debated my worth online, questioning my intentions, my intelligence, even creating elaborate theories about how I'd trapped him. The comment sections were filled with coded language about what he sees in her and gold diggers come in all colors. I stopped reading after someone posted my address with a threat. "We can hire security," Elijah suggested when I told him about the threat. But his solution only highlighted our differences. In his world, problems could be solved by throwing money at them. In mine, no amount of money could shield me from the reality of being a black woman daring to love outside society's expectations. The real test came during a business dinner with his investors. One elderly man, several drinks in, leaned toward me and said, "I must say, you're quite articulate," with the tone of someone discovering a dog that can speak. Before I could respond, Elijah set down his glass with deliberate calm and said, "Actually, she has a master's degree and runs campaigns for clients you couldn't afford. Your surprise at her intelligence says more about your limitations than hers." The table fell silent. Later that night, I asked why he'd risked alienating an important investor. His answer was simple. Because some things matter more than money. You matter more. That moment changed something fundamental between us. We weren't just two people from different worlds anymore. We were partners, facing the world's judgment together, choosing each other every day despite it all. Before Elijah, I defined success through milestones, promotions, salary increases, recognition in my field. But watching him navigate the world showed me a different kind of achievement. Despite his wealth, he'd been living in a bubble, surrounded by people who mirrored his experiences and reinforced his worldview. The change began subtly during a visit to my mother's home for Sunday dinner. Mom served her famous mac and cheese on chipped plates while telling embarrassing stories from my childhood. The house was modest, walls lined with family photos and academic achievements. Initially stiff in his designer clothes, Elijah gradually relaxed, helping my nephews with homework and listening intently to my uncle's stories about the civil rights movement. "Your family talks about real things," he told me later. "In my world, conversations are transactions." Months later, his perspective shift manifested professionally. During a board meeting about potential locations for a new development, he challenged his team's dismissal of a predominantly black neighborhood. "We're overlooking viable communities based on outdated assumptions," he argued, using market research I'd helped him gather. His executives were stunned. This wasn't the decisive but distant leader they knew. Meanwhile, his influence on me was equally profound. I'd always played it safe, afraid one wrong move would cost everything I'd worked for. Elijah pushed me to take calculated risks, to trust my instincts. "You see solutions others miss," he'd say, reviewing my marketing strategies. When an opportunity arose to start my own agency, he offered neither money nor connections, knowing I'd refuse both, but instead gave something more valuable: unwavering belief. "Before you," he confessed one night as we watched the sunset from his penthouse, "success meant having more. Now I understand it's about being more compassionate, more aware, more present." I squeezed his hand, recognizing how we'd both expanded each other's horizons. He'd found a love he never knew he needed, but so had I, a love that challenged me to grow beyond my own limitations. There's something powerful about finding a person who sees not just who you are, but who you could become. Elijah and I began building something neither of us had planned, a partnership that bridged our different worlds and created something entirely new. We started with small projects, combining my marketing expertise with his business acumen to launch initiatives in underserved communities. What began as weekend volunteer work evolved into a foundation focused on entrepreneurship for women of color. "You've completely shifted my understanding of meaningful impact," Elijah admitted during the foundation's first graduation ceremony. We watched 20 women present business plans they'd developed over 6 months, many of whom had never been told their ideas mattered. The pride in their eyes reflected something I recognized from my own journey: the power of being taken seriously. Our relationship wasn't without challenges. The whispers never completely stopped. At industry events, I still caught sideways glances suggesting I didn't belong. Elijah's mother took nearly 2 years to invite me to family holidays without an air of reluctance. But these obstacles became less important as we created our own definition of success, one measured not by external validation, but by the depth of our connection and the purpose in our shared vision. People often ask what's different about our love story. The truth is both simple and complex. We came from worlds that rarely intersect meaningfully. The billionaire and the black woman from South Atlanta, on paper, we made no sense. But beneath the labels society gave us, we found complementary pieces of ourselves. His wealth and influence opened doors, but my perspective ensured we walked through the right ones. His strategic thinking helped scale our impact. while my community connections kept us grounded in real needs. What made our relationship work wasn't ignoring our differences, but acknowledging them honestly. We had difficult conversations about privilege, about race, about the unconscious biases we both carried. There were nights of frustrated tears and mornings of renewed understanding. We learned that love isn't about finding someone who makes life easier. It's about finding someone worth doing the hard work with. The most unexpected outcome was how our relationship affected others. Young interracial couples approach us at events, sharing how our visibility gave them courage. Business leaders reach out to Elijah for advice on authentic diversity initiatives. Women from backgrounds like mine tell me I've helped them believe in possibilities they hadn't dared consider. What we're building is bigger than us now, Elijah told me recently, as we reviewed plans for a community innovation center in my old neighborhood. Looking at the architectural renderings, a modern space designed to nurture dreams rather than dictate them, I realized how far we'd both come from that coffee shop collision. We had become each other's unexpected teachers, challenging assumptions and expanding horizons in ways neither of us could have achieved alone. Today, 3 years after that coffee spill, life looks nothing like I imagined. Elijah proposed last spring, not with a flashy public gesture, but during a quiet moment while helping my mother plant her garden. The ring was his grandmother's, a woman who had once been denied service at lunch counters in the same city where Elijah now has his name on buildings. The symmetry of that history isn't lost on either of us. People still ask what made a billionaire fall for someone like me, as if love follows logical patterns of wealth and status. The truth is simpler and more profound. We found in each other what we both needed but couldn't articulate. He needed someone who saw him beyond his bank account, who challenged his perspective and pushed him toward authentic impact. I needed someone who believed in my potential without trying to change my essence, who respected my independence while creating space for partnership. Our story isn't perfect. We still navigate cultural differences, family expectations, and public scrutiny. But there's beauty in that journey, in building something unique without a blueprint. If my story touches you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love has no boundaries. Remember, sometimes the love you never knew you needed comes when you least expect it, and looks nothing like what you imagined.